Or if Martin Luther King didn't have an ego, would he be Martin Luther King?
Sure.
I think the ego is destructive when it's not led by the heart.
Because I think there's a difference between, you can have pride and be proud of who you are and what you represent without being egoic and
Mm,
self-centered in the traditional way that we talk about that. And I think that when there are strong traditions and cultural narratives around this is who we are and this is what we do as a people, that also helps to dissolve the ego. We talk about all this like dissolving the ego, or maybe not even destroying the ego, but diminishing its impact and doing that work alone, right? Doing the ego work alone is like, wait a second.
yeah,
So much of that comes from community, because ego, by definition, is a focus on the self.
right.
So what is the antidote for the part of us that focuses just on the self? Right? Introducing something else to put our attention on that really matters to us, that loves us back, right? Because the ego loves us
Exactly.
because it needs us to keep us alive. It's like a parasite to a degree. So I'm glad that you shared that piece, because to make it about the community, to make it about the people and the honor, it becomes so much easier to put ourselves on the line when we really have people and an idea, like a culture that we're protecting. So much more worth fighting for than just ourselves.
Absolutely. Such profound insight and dissemination of that whole entire experience. It almost sounds like an ego is an emanation of what happens when somebody's lost connection with community.
Mm-hmm.
The ego then basically perpetuates an individualistic pursuit because of its loss.
Yeah, I'd actually, I don't want to declare this to be a fact, because I can't reference it in my mind, but I do believe that there's at least one traditional indigenous tribe of peoples that don't even have a word for I or me. Like
I've heard that as well.
so there's the word for the people. I can't remember which tribe it is at the moment, but there's a word for the people, and basically everybody introduces themselves as part of the people. Like, I am the
Mm,
people. We like, there's no I in it. It's just I'm the people. You're the people. We are the people. Everything is this, and the names that they have to differentiate each other are just names that don't represent an individual entity. It's a part of a whole. It's an expression of the people. It's not like you belong to the entirety of it. So even just that, the naming
yeah.
of ourselves, and the nurturing of an identity. I used to think that I was like, oh man, this Buddhist stuff, 'cause I studied Buddhism for a while. I was like, oh, just like kind of dissolving the ego, letting that go entirely. Seems like it seems like it would be a big leap. And I think maybe that's the hard part, is expecting that we can go from a massively ego-driven society to zero ego. That's a lot of work for
Mhm.
one lifetime,
A
for one
lot,
human.
a whole lot.
So what are your thoughts on that, man? What do you think it looks like for us to actually move towards this in the span of one lifetime? What's the expectations for
Yeah.
one lifetime, your life, my life, and then sequential multiple lifetimes, generations?
Yeah, I think that the ego is fascinating to me because I often wonder if like Muhammad Ali didn't have an ego,
Mm-hmm.
would he be Muhammad Ali? Or if Martin Luther King didn't have an ego, would he be Martin Luther King?
Sure.
I think the ego is destructive when it's not led by the heart.
Mm.
I think that when the heart is in the driver's seat, the ego, the I am, the my personality, my genetic code, this is what I feel. I feel like when the heart is in the driver's seat, one can then begin to harness the ego, and the ego loses its destructive. It loses its ability to destruct,
Mm.
and it kind of becomes a support system for the intentions of the heart. And I know that's kind of like that's a philosophical statement in a lot of ways.
Mm.
Um, Again, I feel like the pursuit of losing the ego automatically puts a lot of those on the spiritual path in this endless on the spiritual path on this endless pursuit of something, of changing themselves to something that's outside of themselves, the path of enlightenment. I need to become better. I need to get to heaven. And the reality is I don't feel like God creates defunct products. We are the cosmos that have manifested into human form. And so everything we are is exactly what we are supposed to be. And I think the great remembrance is just to remember to put the heart in the driver's seat. And therefore the ego will then fall in line, and life takes on a completely different hue when we're moving from a space of compassion rather than I.